Greetings to Dane County and the Madison community. I want to first thank Madison 365 for highlighting important issues in our communities for both women and men this week. The representation has never failed to be incredible and much needed. My name is Kyrie Brooks. I am an associate principal in the Sun Prairie School District, business owner of entertainment company Dreams LLC, and ELPA PhD student at UW-Madison. I will be your moderator for our Madison 365 segment of barriers to retention and recruitment in the workforce panel today. We have 4 talented and amazing men who will be sharing their experience, their recruitment and retention lens, and they will be identifying obstacles and also possible solutions of retention and recruitment efforts in the workforce. This is a great time for the Madison community to dive into a unique perspective of our panelists and understand what the barriers are that exist. Today, industries such as education, healthcare, and many others struggle with retention and recruitment of talented employees. Employers across industries must adapt to survive the statewide employee shortages. Most importantly, post-pandemic fallout. One of the biggest challenges of employee retention at present is the fallout of the global pandemic. Data has shown that thousands of jobs are going unfilled to long-standing demographic trends and workers changing expectations about benefits, pay, hours, and workplace culture. Very soon, we will speak with a few experts who have experience around this topic of retention and recruitment in this current state. We hope this highly anticipated panel is insightful and we can bring strategies and ideas learned to our spaces of work. Panelists, our community is excited to know who you are, and we are so proud to have you here to discuss this topic. Please bear with me as I introduce these wonderful men. Now introducing Dr. Ruben Anthony has been the president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Madison since March of 2015. I have had the unique pleasure of working with Dr. Anthony as the advocacy chair of the Urban League of Greater Madison Young Professionals with voting, awareness programming, and other civic engagement projects. In the time he has been with the Urban League of Greater Madison, they have increased their job placement by 39% and have made nearly 2,000 placements to date. He is leading the fight to build generational wealth for the BIPOC community through home ownership programs, and he is also the founder of the Black Business Hub, currently under construction. Over the past 30 years, Ruben has been a senior manager in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. He is a subject matter expert in developing job placement strategies and minority business development. Madison community, I am proud to introduce Dr. Ruben Anthony. Next, we have Harper Donahue. He serves as the City of Milwaukee's Chief Human Resources Officer and Director of the Department of Employee Relations, appointed to the role in August of 2022 by Mayor Cavalier Johnson. Harper is responsible for the oversight and direction of the city's civil service system, onboarding, recruitment and retention, classification and compensation, pay and benefits administration, employee training and development, safety, grievances administration, compliance, and employee relations matters. That is a lot. As a member of the mayor's cabinet, Harper advises the mayor and fellow cabinet members on employment matters, regulatory compliance, and best employment practices. Most recently, Mr. Donahue served in a similar role with the City of Madison as a Director of Human Resources. And prior to that, Harper has held several positions with the City of Madison, including Labor Relations Specialist, HR Generalist, and Civil Rights Recruitment Specialist with the city's Department of Civil Rights. I am happy to be in the presence of Harper Donahue. Next, we have Joe Henke. He is the Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging at CUNA Mutual Group, where he advises leaders on ways to foster open, trusting, and inclusive work environments, identities, organizational risks, and develops training opportunities. He also leads the company's network of employee resource groups responsible for representing employees with shared interests. Before coming to Madison in 2014, he worked in a variety of roles, including Director of Programming at Casa Norte in Chicago, He earned a bachelor's degree in social work from St. Louis University in 2001, and also has a master's degree in counseling from DePaul in 2008. Everyone, let's welcome Joe Hamke. And last but not least, Martinez White is an Emmy Award recipient, founding member of the Wisconsin Association of Black Men and CEO of Intuition Productions, who upholds the belief that dreams are made to be achieved. He is a motivational speaker, a DJ, and author who wrote and published Think Like a DJ, 7 Steps to Spin Poverty into Prosperity in August of 2020. Mr. White is also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Incorporated, one of my fellow fraternity brothers. Mr. White is also employed as a director of development with the Wisconsin Foundation and Alumni Association since January of 2022. Martinez received his Bachelor's of Art degree in Communication Arts and Afro-American Studies from UW-Madison. Once again, let's give it up for Martinez White. So thank you once again, gentlemen, for joining us this afternoon. We will now proceed to our prepared panel questions. And around 3:15, we will begin taking questions from our audience in the chat. So listeners, feel free to write your questions as needed. Does that sound all right? All right, let's dive in. So question number 1. Why is it important to center purpose in our efforts to recruit and retain employees? And can you also share what you think are the current issues surrounding recruitment and retention within your industry?
So do you want to select, or you want us to just jump in?
Jump in as you see fit.
All right, so I'll kick it off. So on this question, I would say too many people today are mission driven, and they want to do something that makes sense for their life, for the things that they believe in. And money's not the main motivator. So we need to keep that in mind, and that, people are looking for things that give them meaning. They want to feel good about the work that they do. In the past, sometimes money was the primary motivator, but that's not so much today. People do want money, but people, particularly the millennials and beyond, they want to find a job that fits their lifestyle and their beliefs. So if someone is an environmentalist, they're certainly not going to do a job that pollutes the world, for a long time. They might, step in there for a minute, until they can find something better. And then the other thing is everybody's recruiting. So, young people are in big time demand. The other thing that's happening right now is that when we talk about recruitment and retention within the industry, some of the issues that we face is that baby boomers are getting out of the game. They're getting older, they're retiring, they're leaving. But then that's causing some scarcity of workers in the marketplace right now. Everybody's looking for workers. So what we saw with COVID, is kind of a sea shift. And so, people now want to work virtually. They want to be home in their undershorts and their robe, I'm working. And, the impact of that is as impactful as the printing press or the cotton gin. A lot of folks don't realize that right now, but we're living in a time that the workforce is totally being revolutionized. And so virtual work, is the thing that people are attracted to, and they don't want to come back in. Smart companies are taking advantage of that because it creates some efficiencies. They can downsize on their space, and some of them are doing that. The other thing is that many young people are very talented, and they're looking not to just work for you, but they're looking to poly work. They're looking to work for you and somebody else, and they're saying, hey, as long as I can deliver you the product, why do I got to be there from 9 to 5? And so this is a different look in the industry. And so we have to think about that. And we have to think about how to incentivize. And so I'll give the other panelists a chance to input, and then I'll input again if you need me to.
If I can jump in, I think you pretty much wrapped up everything that most of us were going to say, Brother Anthony. I call him Brother Anthony because that is my fraternity brother.
Yo, baby.
Cap Alpha Psi. But thinking about everything in regards to what we're dealing with as far as trying to recruit and retain talent, purpose, I want to come back to purpose. I think things start off with money. Folks do want to get paid for the work that they do. We talk about salaries. We talk about flexibility. I agree with everything that you had to say in regards of this virtual world that we're now in. And then there's the culture. But I think there's a combination of all those things that folks look for in a fit. If the job is paying amazing, you know, as far as the flexibility, it's okay if you don't have as much as you'd like. If the culture is fantastic, you might negotiate not having as much money as you'd like. But I think folks are looking for some type of combination in regards to where they are. You started off the question talking about purpose. Purpose is important, but I also put purpose in that same group of if it's the salary, if it's the flexibility, if it's the culture. And it also depends on where folks are. In regards to purpose, I think it's a privileged position to look at different organizations, be in a position where you say, like, you know, the money is good, this is a good opportunity, but I don't really know I don't know how I feel about the purpose of this organization. I don't know if this is something I can do. Some folks are in that position, and that's a beautiful position to be in. But I think that as you said, Dr. Anthony, you get to that point where maybe you'll sign up for a while, but as you're growing within that organization, you'll look around, and if you can't really align yourself with the purpose, I think it's more so an issue with retention. You might not, if you don't feel good about the work that you're doing, it's hard to get up and go there every day.
Yeah. Martinez, you want to? Okay. I'll go first and just maybe add to what's been shared. Dr. Anthony and Harper, I think, hit the nail on the head in terms of just the importance of purpose in this work environment, in this worker environment, right? People have choice. We all see the unemployment numbers. We recognize folks are, right, asking some logical questions about my career, where I want to go, who I want to work with, what I want to get paid, to Harper's point, to do that job. And people have options, whether I'm doing, right, a work here in Madison that's for a California-based organization, or, you know, I'm working from Puerto Rico on the beach. People have options and want to have options. And I think what I've seen, which is important over the last couple of years, is just the expectations for organization meeting the needs of their workforce. And those are varied needs. Those are diverse needs, right? From a perspective of even being able to have conversations around mental health and, right, the work-life balance of you know, what it means to work in my home and then go upstairs and cook dinner. How do you separate those things and find a way to have a balance in your work life? And so a little bit connected to the retention piece, but I just think people have choice. And if HR departments, if, you know, the folks who are in charge of people aren't taking a look at the recruitment and retention policies, processes, and procedures, then we're really missing the boat here in terms of talent for the future.
Yeah, and I would add that I think the three primary key terms that I heard about just from these fellows on the call, I think of fear, I think of purpose, and culture. And from my understanding, culture is people plus meaning. There's a group of people who have a mindset. And they give meaning to the life that they live and the existence that they behold. I think living here in Madison over the last 15 years or so, I've seen a culture and a mindset built around the fear of diversification. What it means to diversify your human resource portfolio, just as we do our financial portfolio. Some people don't want to take that risk to diversify their surroundings or their friend groups, or bring more diverse employees to this space. There seems to be a little bit of inertia attached to the fear of what that diversification could mean. You asked about what's holding us back. I think it's really fear, and I think what we have to do to get over that is really latch onto purpose and this idea that a diversification of your finances is going to give you, a better return on investment. So why don't you diversify your life as you do your financial portfolio? Think about it, as shifting the culture forward through purpose. And fear cannot compete with purpose. I think that once we latch on to purpose and realize that there's a lot of growth opportunity and the upside is there for us to grow and diversify our culture here in Dane County, we'll start to see that fear has no space or place when it competes with, and it can't compete with purpose.
So Kyrie, can I make just two more quick points?
Sure.
You know, one of the things that you know is different now is that almost everybody is giving out a signing bonus, you know, and so you know it's hard to compete, you know, with that. And the other thing is that I forgot the second part, the second piece, but go on.
For sure. Just some of the points that you all have been hitting on so far that really stuck out to me is like evolutionizing. We have to realize that work from home it sounds a lot more appealing, especially to the youth right now. And, you know, those who are, you know, at that lower to senior level. Some more things that I heard about is looking at purpose and not being able to align with yourself within organizations. Martinez, you talked about fear, purpose, and culture. That's huge. And also just people having choice and they want to have options. So Joe, you hit that right on the head. So that'll lead us into our next question, which is some mid to lower senior level talent often lack institutional support, resources to development, and access to leadership opportunities, which leads to frustration, the feeling of being disengaged and undervalued, and eventually wanting to leave. So can you share from your experience in what ways organizations can focus the employee experience through the lens of belonging and how that can help with retention?
I think being a part of the solution is always key. I think I live by this mantra, don't complain, create, right? Don't complain about your environment. If there is an absence or a need, work to build an in group and create. That's what my book is about, thinking like a DJ, creating a lifestyle and building all of the, you know, these different experiences and blending them together to have a masterful mix and stay in ultimate sync with your ultimate goal and destiny. So if you see a vision, if you have a dream, if you see that there are things that we could potentially shift and change, I think number one, the goal is to align yourself with like-minded individuals, people who have the same mindset as you, and build from the ethnographic in group to start to see shifts and change. So I don't see, I see opportunities where I see problems, and I think in a problem solution binary here in Dane County, I think there's a significant opportunity for us to create things anew and not focus on the complaining aspect of what we don't think is there, but actually do something and build a strategic plan around what we can do to shift the culture.
Yeah, I love that, Martinez. Just that thoughtful and intentional. I mean, to use Kyrie's word, it's the evolution of kind of HR and people processes, and being a part of that solution as opposed to complaining about all the things that aren't quite right. I think just maybe to add to that point, we've done a lot of work over the last couple of years around, and this isn't the super sexy work of HR or of organizational development, but like taking a look at those written and unwritten norms, whether that's policies, procedures, right? Benefits packages, like who's making those decisions around what we offer beyond salary to our staff, and being able to ask folks and pressure test and say, is this gonna work for folks? And if it's gonna work for folks, is it the majority? I work for a predominantly white institution. Who's making those decisions around policy changes, benefits, and asking, Kyrie in my warm up here talked about the role of ERGs and my leadership in that. I think that's a great way to go and get some feedback from folks around, as we think about BIPOC employees, how do we get feedback around what's working and not working, and make sure that we're doing it in intentional ways, not an exploitative, like we checked the box, like we checked in with the African American ERG, so we're good. But it's really from a partnership perspective. How do we do better for all of our employees, and start with our traditionally underrepresented employees as centering their needs in those types of changes.
So I think if I can jump in there, I think we really have to lean on relationships. So we do have folks in leadership roles in different organizations, and I think folks need to take it upon themselves to reach out. If you identify somebody who's hungry and work with them, build those relationships, you may have a little bit more information about the organization. You got to support folks. I think about when I first got into the public sector, if I can rewind back a few months ago, when I was leaving Madison, I was cleaning out some files. And as an HR director, you get access to certain things other folks don't have. And as I'm digging around at different things, I saw a complaint from about 17 years ago. And it was in the Department of Civil Rights. And as I'm going through this complaint, I'm thinking, I was around that time. And the complaint was, I was involved in it. And there was a complaint about, and there was actually another panelist from a previous discussion you all had. There was an older brother who had took us to lunch about a month after I started with the city of Madison. And someone had complained about us being gone for lunch for too long. And as I'm reading this complaint, I'm laughing. It's amazing to me. And there's an investigation, and I think about the results of the investigation. Pretty much was they interviewed one of my coworkers. She had said he actually usually doesn't go to lunch. He's usually working through his lunches. So I patted myself on the back. I said, look at young Harp getting it. But then I thought about that gentleman who took us to lunch. I went to the Chop House. That was a big deal to me. That's a gentleman who I still have a great relationship right now. That's a gentleman who told me about the culture of the city. He told me how to move. And you think these things, but you don't. The value that you get with some of these relationships, especially if you're open to just listen. And I think that needs to happen more. I think young folks need to be open to reaching out. I think older folks that have been in some of these roles, you have to identify folks, support them. And I think the other part, as far as developing, I think it's important that folks take that on their own. Get what you can out of the organization that you went, but don't be afraid to invest in yourself. If that's picking up some classes, if that's, whatever it is, certificates here and there, like those are the tools that'll help you get to that next level. So when you get that opportunity, you just, you're better prepared, you're more attractive.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what's been said, and definitely I agree with Harper's position about, the organization has a responsibility, but the individual have to have the responsibility to find his or her way as well. In terms of the organization making the culture more accepting, they have to put young people and folks that have expressed an interest in becoming managers, you have to put them in a position to grow. You have to recognize their contribution. A lot of times, particularly brown and black people, you're in meetings and things like that, and you can say something, and people pass over, but somebody else can say something. They're like, man, damn, that was really hot, but you need to recognize the contribution that people make. You have to recognize that young people bring innovation and implement some of their ideas. Send young people to training. Let them lead an organization. Look for opportunities to kind of let them lead and give them credit for that. Recognize teaching moments when something happens, like, young Harper, you did a good thing, today, or, you could have done this better, and so young people have to be ready to receive that as well. But as Harper said, I believe that young people, have to look for opportunities, because we don't want brain drain. We don't want our best and our brightest leaving, opportunities or even leaving the city because they're not accepted or welcomed or grown here. And so, young people, have to volunteer and show off their skills. Join organizations like the Young Professionals, and if you can't find leadership opportunities on your job, find leadership opportunities elsewhere, like Kyrie and the rest of you guys are doing. Look for opportunities, like Harper said, to grow new skills. Take lateral transfers in your organization to get new skills. Make yourself invaluable to the organization, and then ask to be matched with a mentor. And start networking and things like that. But it's a two-pronged approach. The organization has a responsibility, and the individual has a responsibility to kind of look to find their way as well.
Thank you, gentlemen, for hitting those deep points. Very, very, I felt it all. So as we continue to talk about recruitment and retention, let's talk about how important it is for organizations to reflect and address what issues may be preventing employees of color from feeling as if they belong and are valued.
I really think that what happens outside of the four walls of the workplace is equally as impactful as what's happening inside the job and in the role. I think that millennials and our Gen Zers and our young people and people who are thinking about what to do next for the next like 20 to 30 years of their life, that being the best span of their life, they're really trying to find a connection. And if we want to, sell Madison as a best place to live and attract young people here and retain them here, I think that we really have to think about the root of sales. And the root of sales is a connection, and connecting with the client or the potential prospect or the potential, new pool of young people to come to this space. And I think the root of connection is feeling. How does it feel to talk to someone that you have similarities with or that you like-minded with? It's a fluidity to it. It's a flow to it. It's a natural, dogmatic kind of frequency that we kind of see when you align with someone. So when we're thinking about Dane County and what it means to attract and retain young people here to this space, we really have to assess how what the feelings are, what the connection is. If we want to try to sell this as the best place to live, how does it feel to live in this community and grocery shop or take care of your person who needs? Do you have a place to go to enjoy yourself when you are, working hard and you want to wind down a little bit? Do you have a space for education and entertainment? Do you have an edutainment space where you can feel comfortable in and you can feel connected in? That's what I see when I travel across the country, and that's what I think is needed here in Dane County, is that level of connection and a higher frequency of positivity when it comes to the feelings that young people have, particularly those of us that are between the ages of 21 and 40.
Yeah. Go ahead, Hawk.
If I can jump on that. So I recently made a move down 94 to Milwaukee. Grew up in Madison. Amazing opportunities were presented to me here in Madison. So I'm not going to forget that. One of the things that made that move easy is the culture. I've been involved in conversations with folks for years where there's an understanding. Maybe a decade ago, I spoke with a gentleman who's involved with business development, and he had mentioned, we're talking to the CUNAs, the UWs, the other organizations around here, and they're struggling to recruit and retain folks of color, specifically Black folks. They'll come, they'll look around, and they're getting out. The first thing, smoking. You work hard, you want to play hard, and Madison doesn't deliver on that. And it's been an issue for years. I know you're doing your thing, Martinez. When I see a flyer, I get an invite to something. I try to stick my head out. I always have a great time. But when I was initially reaching out to Milwaukee, I got down there, went to a lounge, I looked around, and there's a difference between, you can set up shop anywhere, Martinez, and you're gonna play some good music. We're gonna have a good time. But there's a difference when you're setting up shop someplace and there's a place that was created for you. When the art on the wall, folks look like you. The vibe, the feeling, it's just different. So that culture was what drove me to Milwaukee. But in regards to organizations in Dane County, I think everybody talks about equity, racial equity. That's what we do. We talk about diversity, but you have to really look at what these organizations look like. And as far as like your ability to move up, move around, if you're seeing one or two folks here and there, that doesn't feel like an organization that you're going to thrive in. And I say that's somebody who, if I'm being honest, I felt like I was thriving. But it's one of those situations that people should come in and if it's really reflective of the community that we're serving, that's what leadership roles should look like. And it's all throughout the organization. And I think that's the part that's missing. In regards to having that understanding, I think it's important. I think a lot of folks do have a pulse on the organization. I think surveying is helpful. I believe, Joe, you had mentioned the employee resource groups. Usually, if you have that pulse, they're not telling you anything you don't know. But I think what's helpful is that you get that survey, you get that data back, and sometimes you need that to move into some action. And that right there is helpful. But in regards to how folks are feeling, you know how folks are feeling. We know how folks are feeling. It's not new. I think sometimes you just need that space to have that honest conversation, but that honest conversation needs to lead to some action. because it just as, as I'm going on right now, you come into an organization and you hear equity this, equity that, and you don't actually feel that, you don't actually see it. The disconnect between what people say and what they actually do, that's when you start to question the integrity of an organization. And that's when we go back to that conversation about purpose. And that's when we go back to that conversation about options. And it's just like, hey, the money is good, the benefits are great. But as you work your way through an organization, you got options. Like you might, move around a little bit.
I'll jump in here. I think that beyond Dane County and some in Dane County are starting to see the value of expanding their markets to include minorities. When you look at like advertisement now, like for example, Snoop Dogg, who would ever thought that, Snoop Dogg, a gangster rapper would have a stage now with Martha Stewart, but it's all about the dollars, right? And who would have ever thought that like rap culture would have lasted so long? I did because I grew up in New York, but all the prognosticators would say that rap wasn't going to last for a long time. But now, it's accepted culture. They're selling clothes, they're selling burgers, and many other aspects of popular culture. And so people are now starting to see the value proposition of diverse people, diverse cultures, and diverse markets. And they're starting to see, like, look at Tyler Perry killing it, telling a story about Black folks and things that, we hold true. Look at Jay-Z, and others, and, making money from telling, attractive parts about the Black story. So other organizations, are now, really starting to see that. And because it's all about the dollar sometimes for organizations. And so a lot of times still, though, organizations, unless they know that they're going to have a significant gain or a significant loss, they still, don't, think that they need to bring on brown and Black people. Unless there's a compliance issue. If you're an organization and you need to kind of make sure that you are including people or you're not going to get federal or state funds, then they do it. And so so there's some change in some instances, people still don't understand the value. But for the most part, I think that, people are starting to understand the value of Black style, brown style, and nuance. And that has dollar signs attached to it as well. The challenge that a lot of folks place is that sometimes a company, probably they say they want to change their culture, like Harp is saying, and they're saying all the right words, and they hire one person, and that person is the lonely only. They're the only one. They're the one person in that organization, and they don't want to be there. And people don't want to be in places where they're just talking a good game, but they don't have a history of having a culture that welcomes diversity. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I'd maybe just add to this. One, I love the Snoop reference. I think specifically because he's really big into Latino culture too. I'm learning this about him. I think it was his Long Beach days or something like that. But I mean, there's dollars in that too. I mean, that's a strategic play, I think, as well, right? I think the business case is important to this work, but ultimately, like, I want to maybe take it back to where Martina started around, like, how does it feel to show up to a workplace where you're the only, and where folks don't acknowledge the things that are happening outside of our four walls, right? That have an impact on how you show up and how you are set up for success or not set up for success. Like it is those bigger macro conversations that I think we need to have, but it's also the day-to-day experiences that folks have, right? And we've been talking a lot about around just the bias of professionalism. We're insurance and financial services, so we're about as old school as you can get from just a history there. And right, there is a unnecessary expectation around what professionalism looks like in the workplace today that I think we need to be critical of, right? It gets in the way of people. Henry, before we started this conversation, said, bring your full self to this conversation. That bias of professionalism, in my opinion, gets in the way of us, right? Being authentic, being our full self. And that's where we miss, those opportunities to really get, right? We bring people into the organizations to do good work, to bring creative ideas, to innovate, all those other things, but we're asking them to just be like the person next to them. We're really missing an opportunity there. So just wanted to add that piece there.
If I can jump in, I actually want to give a shout out to some of the work y'all doing over there, Joe, some of the work that Angela's doing over at CUNA, and weigh in with one of the most awkward interviews that I've ever had, if I want to call it an interview. It was actually a meeting / maybe interview. About 10 years ago, a gentleman had wanted me to connect with the gentleman over at CUNA. I can't remember the brother's name. Smooth brother. I think he was from the East Coast. I want to say Boston or something. You may know him talking. I can't remember his name, but it was awkward in the sense like he had my resume. I didn't apply for a job. It was just a mutual. It was a mentor of mine and maybe an acquaintance of his who just thought it'd be good for us to meet and talk. I was doing human resource work, and I met with him. He's asking me about my resume. He's talking about my background. We're just vibing. It wasn't really an interview. We were just vibing. And then after talking about 30, 45 minutes, he was like, well, I really don't have a job to offer you. And I was like, I actually wasn't looking for a job. I met with you because Dr. Rose told me I had to. And I do what Dr. Rose tells me to do. We laughed a little bit. And I thanked him for his time. He's like, no, I don't have a job for you, but I could probably work something out. I could create something. And it was that type of, interaction. So when I see some of the great stuff that's coming out of CUNA, that's how folks get down over there. And I've been in the public sector for the last 20 years. I can't meet somebody and have a good vibe with them and create a job. It's a little bit more that goes along with that. So everything I see about CUNA, I'm not surprised. I just wanted to share that story because that's what it looks like when you're really trying to make moves and you're trying to do some things differently. You have the right folks in positions.
Yeah, thanks for that shout out. And I do everything that Dr. Rose tells me to do too. So I'm in good company.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I heard a lot about connection, just having a niche. And Martinez, you hit that on the head. What does the organization look like? What does the culture look like? That's huge. And just creation of new jobs with more innovative skills. Dr. Rubin, Anthony, you talked about value and diversity. And, they don't really know how. And compliance. A lot of these, industries are just being compliant, right? And Joe, you talked a lot about day-to-day experiences. So I really value that. So we're going to move into an audience question. So audience member asked, do you feel that the evolution through purpose being discussed needs a foundation of teaching and social emotional intelligence training?
I think that's a powerful question. That is the root of the work that we do at Intuition Productions is the social emotional aspect of being connected to a space or a city or a town or a room. How do you create safe space for people at multidimensional levels, on the emotional level, on the physical, the spiritual, the financial level? That is the mystery. And, the question that we're working to answer at my firm is, what do we need to do to make that a reality? So I just think that the root of our ascendance in this space in this county is really gonna be attached to how people feel and what people are, what their emotional response is to once they leave work, when they go to a restaurant, or, do I have to drive an hour and a half away? Do I got to go to Chicago or Milwaukee? Do I got to go to surrounding areas to really enjoy myself as a young person? Or do I just go to work and go home, incessantly? Am I doing that? So I think we have to kind of get off the hamster wheel and think of some new ways to really support the emotional aspect of what it means to be a young working professional to prevent burnout and attract and retain young people to this area.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, a purpose-driven life, translates into a purpose-driven work life. And for me, and my job at the Urban League, I worked in the private sector, the public sector, but this is a purpose-driven job. It lines up with my theology, pursuing justice, being able to serve and to help folks. And so I wish, earlier in my career that I would have spent more time, focusing on, what matches up, with my lifestyle, my theology and those sorts of things. So yes, I do think that more conversation about purpose-driven careers should be taught in the schools.
Yeah, I would just add, I would love to see, what we consider soft skills, which I would throw social emotional learning. I've seen it thrown in that category, which I hate the phrase soft skills, but that ability to look inward and understand where, maybe that fear is coming from, to use Martinez's word earlier, or to understand the importance of, empathy and ethical leadership. Those things, I think I'm hopeful that it's in our rear view mirror where, the profile of a leader is like business results, and no matter how you get there, doesn't matter. I think it's those pieces around, the day-to-day experiences, a little bit of self-awareness and understanding maybe where their fear around diversity, equity, inclusion, or change, or whatever is coming from, is part of the equation for us to get to where we need to go as a society, as organizations. So I just want to maybe give it as a shout out as let's move beyond thinking about it as a soft skill. It's the bedrock to how successful organizations work.
No, I like it as a tool. If we're talking about leading to self-awareness, I struggle with some of the teaching, and sometimes it depends on who's doing the teaching. I think about different trainings that I've participated in throughout the years, depending on who the presenter was, who else was in the audience, some of the discussions in there, those, they carried weight in regards to what I took away from it. But part of my struggle is what I've gotten out of those and what other folks have gotten out of those. If it's leading to, white folks getting more self-awareness, fantastic. Part of my struggle is that I can think about, we're talking about recruitment, retention, but part of that is interviewing folks, different things along those lines. Most organizations do have those diversity related questions. And I think about, more strategic questions will talk about actual experiences that folks have or that they've had. And I think about how different folks will respond to those questions. I've worked alongside a lot of folks. Part of their response, they'll talk about their experiences with me. I was in this workshop with Dr. Anthony, with Martinez White, with Joe Hankey. They get more credit from their relationship with us than we get for being us. And it's just like figuring out a way so that we can have some really honest conversations, trainings, different things along those lines. If it's leading to self-awareness, if that's leading to some type of accountability, I'm all for it.
Definitely. Thank you, fellas. So moving more along the lines of, I know we spoke a lot about training just now with the audience question. So can you share how training and development has helped you attract, recruit, and retain talent for your organization? And what can leaders do to engage, grow, and retain members of their teams?
So I think it's important. We got to listen to our employees. We got to listen to folks. So if you're getting those suggestions from folks, if it's through the employee resource groups or whoever, if you have a pulse, you have a relationship with folks all throughout the organization, you give consideration to some of the suggestions and act on them. I think as far as reflecting what leadership looks like, I think we have to have folks in these roles. I think that's how you actually lead to some of this change.
Yeah.
And I would add, go ahead, Doc.
No, you go. Go ahead.
I was going to add that strategic support and strategic partnerships. If there are young people in your organization who have entrepreneurial ideas and they want to move out of this stoicism and this frozen in time space that we sometimes live in Wisconsin, and they want to have some fluid ideas and they want to try new things, in their opinion, leaders support them, support their ideas. They could inspire other young people that are coming into the organization to be reared in the right direction or to continue to keep the longevity of the organization going just by knowing that their ideas matter and that they are supported and that they are in the space of leadership amongst their peers. So I think that really helps accelerate retention to keep someone to, if I feel value and I feel, again, that word feeling is coming up, where I feel connected, I'm going to be less likely to, dismantle the house and continue to try to build on top of the foundation we've already set. So I would recommend if there are people who have bold ideas that are entrepreneurial, that are thinking about cutting edge ways to do new things and do different things in a new way, or pour new wines into old wine skins, I recommend that you give them a chance and give them an opportunity and support them and help them continue to be an opinion leader in the space that they currently live in. Because young people want to, have impact. They want to make touch points. They want to see results. They want to have a tangibility to some of the ideas that they have. So, put them in play and see how they work out and help them fine tune them over time.
Yeah, so I think for the success of organizations, they have to invest in growing professionals, because right now with the scarcity of workers, sometimes you have to hire someone who may not be totally all there in positions that you bring them in for, but you got to be willing to make an investment. You got to be willing to help these individuals become on career paths that will allow them to be supervisors and leaders, but also to be subject matter experts. And that means that organizations, if these young people or young professionals or growing professionals are interested in going the extra mile and taking extra classes that you might offer in your organization, or extra classes beyond the organization, you've got to give them the flexible schedules, and you got to give them all the support that you can give them, because it will benefit your organization. You don't want to have to go out and recruit again and lose productivity. When I worked for the state of Wisconsin, which I worked for 24 years, and they had different programs to allow you to develop. They had one program that they paid 100% of your tuition if it was job related. They paid 75% of your tuition if it was career related. Then we had an organization called WAPSE, the Wisconsin Association of Black Public Sector Employees. And we had Black leaders that trained once a year, aspiring managers and things like that. So I'm telling folks that are watching this, don't just leave it to the organizations. That we as leaders and managers, we have a responsibility to do some of the work too. We don't have to do it through an organized group, but you got to make the time to reach back and grab somebody and mentor somebody. I can remember in that WAPSE organization, it was Howard Fuller, Kirby Mack, Chuck and Candace McDowell, Frank Humphreys, and all these giants in the community that made the time. And we got a chance to spend maybe 3 or 4 days listening to them do workshops and things like that. So organizations have to be willing to make the investment. Organizations have to be willing to give leadership assignments, to give some of these young people some of the better assignments, to give them a chance to lead in community industry committees. Most organizations have counterpart industries. Let them lead committees. Let them put them in opportunities to be in front of executives, to showcase their intellectual skills. Give them a chance to speak publicly, and then also take the opportunity to teach these young people leadership etiquette. When you go into a meeting and things like that, don't sit in the president's seat at the front of the table, and don't talk so much. Listen more than you talk. Come dressed for success, and take upward mobility opportunities. So we have to, be a part of that solution, as well as we raise those expectations for organizations.
I love that. And I'll add an exclamation point to some of the last points Dr. Anthony covered. I think just the value of feedback. It's an overlooked and often stressful for leaders. It's stressful for employees, but I think it's part of the secret sauce to this whole retention piece. Is how do I know what I'm working on to get to the next level? Because there's all that work you can do in a classroom, and that's great. But to Dr. Anthony's piece, it's stretch assignments, it's leadership visibility, it's these are the things that I'm working on as an individual and will help me get to the next level. I also think that in larger organizations in particular, that there can be a little bit of a siloed approach around learning and development and career development. And so, in one department, you might know a very clear, right? You got to get this certification to get to, a senior level. You got to get this to, become a people leader. But oftentimes that's in someone's head. I've seen that, right? And so how do we make it, make the kind of those unspoken rules explicit and share with folks, these are the things you need to do to get to the next level. I'm your partner in that, right? I think it's a leader's role plus that employee's role to help, get to that next level, but let's make it explicit. And I just want to give a shout out for our people analytics person, Dr. Felix George, talks about shifting from career ladders to career lattices, and thinking about this as like, how do we retain talent, help them develop, maybe try something on in a different department, but right, demonstrate that investment in them for the long run. Because the one thing I know about Gen Zs, and I've heard this a lot because I work a lot with early in career talent, is that they want what's next and what's new, right? And they're not going to wait 10 years for that next gig, right? And so we have to be thoughtful about how do we give folks stretch assignments, opportunities to move laterally in an organization, build their network, and ultimately develop and hopefully stay with organizations.
That's a great point, Joe. And I'm in the middle of reading a book called Would You Want to Work for You? And it sort of examines, that aspect of the workplace culture. What are you providing? So a lot of the things that you guys are talking about, like that explicit support to make it to that next level, and being able to support in order to increase productivity and, giving that worker the skills that they need to make it to that next level pretty much. And I feel like you guys really summed that up pretty well. So that'll take us into our last question of the day. And that is, how important is pay equity and pay transparency in recruiting and retaining talent? And how important is it for organizations to have more defined, diverse, and transparent career paths to attract possible candidates?
I think that's cornerstone. Being able to know exactly, what my potential salary could be, what my potential benefits package could be, that allows young people to think about long-term planning, family planning, home purchases, debt reduction, investments, things of the sort. So I think transparency in the space of how much or, where you are in terms of the pay range, I think that's going to be key to continue to get young people interested in roles and to let them know that they support it and that they're not, integrated into a fallen house, that they're going somewhere that has a strong foundation and that's going to allow them to stand on their own 2 feet and build something for their family and for their own lifestyle. I think a lot of young people are first generation college graduates. They first in their family to get an advanced degree. They want to make sure that when they go, outside of work, that they can use those resources and, benefit their own lifestyles and add value to their existence in the cities that they live in. So they have to have that flexibility. I think here in Dane County, we do offer competitive wages and we do offer young people the ability to build economically. But I think it's going to be key to really hone in how they're able to use those resources outside of the workforce and what they can do about, feeling better in the cities that they live in. Music is how our feelings sound. Is there enough music? Is there enough Black music in this town? Is there enough music for culture in this town? There's over $600 million worth of music economy in this Dane County area every year annually, with less than 1% being spent with Black musicians or supporting Black music art. How can we shift and change that and move the country forward? I think it's going to be about making sure that we have the resources, make sure that pay equity is there, make sure that pay transparency is there. But once that is in play, how do we use those resources to benefit our lifestyles and build on the things that we've already set for ourselves?
If I can jump in, I'm sorry, Dr. Anthony, were you?
No. I see that you were ready to go. I'll wait for you.
I'm sorry. Thank you. In regards to the transparency, it's definitely important. Being in the public sector, when folks are applying for jobs, they usually have a good idea in regards to what their job will pay. The tricky part comes often when we're trying to figure out where someone falls into that range. The sad part is that there are a lot of employers who the win for the employer is how little can I give you to come on board? And that's not the right approach. You want to pay somebody to keep them. You bring in, especially when you're talking about young folks, you bring in somebody, you lowball them with an offer, they accept it, it's an opportunity. After they've been in whatever role you hired them to do, as soon as you throw that money into developing them, because everybody does things a little bit differently, they've walked around with this title for a little bit, other employers are going to be able to steal them pretty easily if you didn't take care of them. I encourage folks, don't just pay them what you can, pay them a little bit more. Don't pay them, get them to the table, pay to keep them so that they know that they have someone who's invested in them, that wants them to be there, and they'll hold on to that. And that'll carry a little bit of weight because after they've been in that seat for a little bit and they look around, they know, they'll figure out just what that offer was in comparison to some of their counterparts in with other organizations or even within the organization. So it's definitely important. Take care of folks.
Yeah, I definitely believe that people should be compensated based on the value that they're bringing to an organization, and that being Black or brown should not be a detractor and get you a lower salary. The days of good old boyism and nepotism should be gone forever. It's super important if you want to get the best talent. Transparency, I think is what makes sure that you get consistency across the board, because sometimes people not equally yoked. And so, you may not have to pay everybody the same thing, but, race should not be that factor. Definitely, women should be paid equal pay. And then in terms of making sure that when people come into organizations, they feel like they have career progression. If you have an organization and you have like a single title, you're doing yourself harm, because people will know right away after working a few months that they're going to be in that same position for years. So if you have an opportunity, employers, to tier your position, say if you're hiring a workforce specialist, have a workforce specialist 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that even the folks that have been there for a long time don't think that folks who are new are coming in at the same level as they are. But again, pay equity is important. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, I love in our little chat, we're talking about just pay to recruit, right? And from a candidate experience, like being transparent, being thoughtful about that approach, even talking about your organization's compensation philosophy, right? And the total rewards, not just salary, although salary is good. But what are the other things that, right, make an impact and maybe set you apart from another organization? I think that's important to have those types of conversations. And I think it's important to look at it not only at the front end, but on a regular basis, right? Because in larger organizations in particular, there's opportunities for pay inequities to just begin to pop up, right? Because if one hiring manager makes a decision about, I think Harper made the point around like pay people, just pay people. But if the hiring manager next to me has a different philosophy, like I'm saving money, right? When you start at a different starting point, things are going to get wonky. So we actually take a look at our pay equity stats twice a year, and course correct when we need to, because it can get out of whack really, really quickly. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like having that conversation with somebody who says, I do the same job as this, white man next to me, but they're paid, 25% more. Like, help me understand that. Like, I can't explain that. And so I think being thoughtful about both on the front end, transparency, but then course correcting as you go, super important as well.
Yeah, and I want to say one last thing: investing in people. When you make an investment, you wait for their return on investment. Let's invest in people. Let's pour into people, and expect a return on what we give. What we give to the marketplace.
Thank you for ending on those notes. Panelists, I want to thank you all for contributing to this impactful conversation and breaking down the barriers to retention and recruitment. This has been an amazing conversation. and also the impactful work that you do within your industries daily. So again, I believe we identify some valuable strategies in order to keep talented employees and also consistently bringing them in. So thank you all so much for joining us today for our panel of breaking barriers of retention and recruitment. Thank you so much, Madison 365.
This is 365 Media.